Hello,
Hey
hello.
there. Nice seeing you again. Happy New
Right?
Year.
Happy New Year 2022. I mean,
Hmm.
my goodness, just we're here. We just want to say Happy
Yeah,
New Year to
yeah.
everybody
Not
here
used to
as
this
well.
crap. Yeah. Yeah. So I see we've got a list of questions. So I'm gonna from time to time go look at them. I see the first question people have asked is personal goals of a family man.
I have personally, I have two kids. I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I have to say, I find myself and just my life is all about work and I'm traveling, whether I'm making movies and I have condo and now I have kids, right? It's all about that life balance. And I got to make sure that I am available and I'm present with the kids, right? So that
Yeah,
I'm
it's
having
hard.
conversations. So I'm constantly reminding myself to be here, be present. We'll talk about Roblox for 20
Hmm.
minutes. And I'm like, you know what, Wayne? I got to be there. I got to be present for them. And another goal of mine is to set an example for my kids. I mean, I looked up to my parents. We had strong community involvement. And how do I set that example for my kids if I'm not there, right? What are yours, Derek?
Well, I've always wanted to be the one to set an example. I really enjoy that. I enjoy working. I work a lot, and I'm always keeping myself busy, and so I feel guilty when I don't spend time. Yesterday I really enjoyed my son wanting to read a book, and so he sidled up to me, and we read together. And I have three boys, and there are two of them that came alongside and read. One of them read a page, the other read the other page, and then they kind of rotated, and so we enjoyed that. So it was a moment that I got to enjoy. I don't often have those moments, but at the same time I want to be able to set an example. I'm concerned about the future and what it's going to be like. We're working really hard. I've been taught to live that way by my family. You work hard, you'll succeed. Today's society is very different, however. Generation Z, I mean, who knows what it's going to look like for them? I see some challenges there, and it's about how we're raising this generation. It's a real challenge.
And to your point, we also have, we're in a time of COVID, right? Does that make a difference for you? I mean, you're working at home, you've got your kids running around. I mean, how's that different?
For sure. Lots of times people come up and there are interruptions, and at the same time, I want to be kind. I don't want to ignore them and say, no, no, no. If they want a hug, I give them a hug. Sometimes I hold up a meeting just to hold them, hug them, check in with them. And it's important to be present.
Yeah.
Finding that balance, especially for everyone with COVID in the picture, regardless of what we're doing, it's changed everything. Everyone's working from home, everyone has a different environment. I have both my parents living here with me, my mother and father, the kids' grandparents. And so I'm also
Right.
caring for them and trying to maintain that balance. It was completely unexpected, but it is what it is. We're doing what we can to make the best of it.
And I think there's pros and cons when it comes to situations like this, right? Talk about homeschool. Like, wow, it wasn't as easy as I thought. Traditionally you take your child to school and they come home at the end of the day, but now you've got more involvement. But at the same time, I can finally see what my kid goes through in a day at school. What their teachers go through, right? So I want to continue that. So I see both sides of this pandemic.
True, true. You know what? There's another question. The second one is, what was it like when you first met? That's a really long story, but maybe I could make it brief. I set up. There were six founders with the NDPT, the National Deaf Tour. We did that, and we were having fun, and eventually developed a business. And we realized that we wanted to film some of this. We needed someone who could film something like a commercial for us, and so one raised a hand and said, "I know this guy. He's out in California, and he used this sign. Who's this? Who's this sign? Who's that? Oh, Wayne Betts." So we had this guy come out, Wayne Betts, and it was really funny. He came out here. He was driving, and remember that it was a
It
jalopy. Yeah,
it
it,
overheated. I
it
got stuck on the side of the road.
yeah, it basically broke down. Remember, you had all these cases of video equipment. Now it's all on your phone, but you lugged over these big bags and cases with the equipment and started filming, and we started chatting. And it was really interesting. We spoke about VRS. We spoke about the vision of how we can make changes to really impact the industry. We wanted to change how we access the service, language, communication. We felt very limited. VRS was a very nice step forward, but it was limiting. So this conversation went on all night. We're sitting there in this hotel room having this discussion. There was this poker tournament that was underway.
Mm-hmm.
While we were, instead of going there, we stayed in the room having this conversation.
We sure did. And it's funny how things work out, right? As a startup, I didn't receive any type of compensation. We all put hours in. We tried to figure out how we were going to make rent, and I think that was the point where I was like, I gotta self-sustain. How can I work throughout the day and then maintain this, right? And then you came into the picture. You were totally unplanned. I think about that. And I also remember like when we first met and we were talking about, this vision. And then later I thought, I need a partner, I need an investor. And then we met up again in New York City.
Right.
And that was like really when we started to work together, like this was legitimate. We became business partners. And I remember that meeting in New York City. You asked me a question. You said, what do you envision for the future? What kind of business do you want to set up right now? It's not about that. What big picture? What's your value? What's your contribution? And I remember that. And that got me thinking. And I was like, okay, this is a contribution. What am I contributing? And whatever, we agreed upon what we're going to contribute, and we became business partners.
And what we learned 12 years ago, again, that was 12 years ago. What we learned, was our vision was big. It was really big. And sometimes we we have this vision of total access, complete communication, having a conversation, what that looks like. And we talk about that every day. In our current environment, there are 20,000 interpreters, serving hundreds of thousands of deaf people, and it's really bad. So how do we introduce the element of having a conversation to this? We've been together, working together for 12 years. Our vision has remained the same. It's unchanged.
Mm-hmm.
It may have been adapted, evolved a little bit, but it's been hard. Sometimes we think, oh, it'll be 2 or 3 years when we arrive at that. But it's been 12 years we've been at work at this, and we've realized that sometimes it takes a lifetime. Sometimes it takes years, decades.
Yep.
I mean, but
Consistency.
it's important that we're consistent. We plug along, and that's why we're still partners. We're still really tight friends. We're very close because we share a common vision. I think, frankly, that's really the key to this.
I agree. And I think at my lowest moments and my high moments here, like I can't even imagine going through those moments without you. You knew how to push my buttons. You knew how to challenge me. You would sit down and get through to me. You'd say, Wayne, think about this. And it really kept me authentic because we kept each other in check. Right. And I don't think, honestly, I wouldn't be where I am today if I did not have a business partner like you. And this
Same
is a
here.
long, long game. And it's going to continue to be that way. Totally agree.
It's funny because sometimes, when we, need to relax, we run out of gas. You always find a way to light a fire in my ass. You piss me off and get me going. And and then we keep going. But it's nice. It's nice. The way we bounce things off of each other. It's really nice. So I think
Yeah.
Convo's journey has been, incredible. Um, Came close to being bankrupt 4 or 5 times. There were these lows. We've had some highs. We had, of course, the Be Beautiful campaign. That event was a brilliant event. It was very community oriented. The videos that we did, things that made us feel a real connection. It felt real. If you remember back in the early days with marketing, before I got into Convo, I used to look at marketing from different sources, and they were a real turnoff. They spoke down to deaf people, portrayed deaf people as idiots. And when I saw this marketing, it was real. This really reflects me as a person. It demonstrates an understanding of how we could frame this to the world, that it's important. We're real people. We have varying backgrounds, and that's what makes it beautiful.
We're individuals. Yes, agreed. I know that I had worked for a different VRS provider previously, and if it wasn't for that experience, I wouldn't be here. It's that entire experience as creating video, creating content, editing videos and stuff like that. There's a lot of breakdown. The motto was breaking down the communication barrier, right? And then even I would make this banner, this pop up that I actually designed, and it was like breaking through this wall, and it said breaking down communication barriers. This is something I designed myself, right? We would have these banners at Deaf Nation, and I think that's the root and the commonality I would see all the time. And that's when I was like, no, it's not about that. Of course, there's communication barriers, but that's not who I am as a person, right? I can fully express myself in sign language. That's not a problem. Now, when we have two people who can't sign, then yes, there is a communication breakdown. But that led me to thinking about how can I market? And it was like, be you. Figure out how we can design services and access around you as an individual. So I reflect on my times at the old VRS competitor companies, and I think about all just their theme and how that was just all about communication
Agreed.
barriers.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a question, Jarrod. I mean, you've been here for a while, but I'd like to know, what does Convo mean to you? What does Convo mean in your life, Jarrod?
Ooh. Yeah. I sleep, live, breathe Convo. I mean, every day. I think, first of all, Convo is the place that I call home. It's the place where we can generate an impact. We can get things set. The way VRS has been set, we want Convo to be more than just VRS. We want it to be about a whole range of things, about communicating in a different way. Could be, look, I want to talk to my next door neighbor. You're telling me that I can't, that I'm restricted from doing that because of the way it's set up. We want to figure out how we can be able to communicate freely. And that's really what it's about, freedom. That's the vision. For me, I'm passionate, I'm driven. I get up every day striving to look at how we can successfully achieve that goal. That's really what Convo means to me. What about you?
Yeah. It's changed, I have to admit, throughout time. And for some of you that may know, my mindset from high school was film. I thought that was it. That was my life. That was my path. Fully dedicated. I went to college for film. I worked on film. I never thought that I would ever divert from that path. And Convo to me is who I am, honestly. Everything that Convo has been through, I also have been through. And I've been stretched thin, right? In the beginning, I thought, we can build this ourselves. We don't need to depend on anybody. We can build it, right? We can do it right. And then that evolved and that changed to, oh, we need a community of engineers. We need people to work together. Oh, okay, so now we need to have people involved to share ideas. So I stretched myself too thin. It was always like a one-minded like perspective. So sometimes I would get creative and it would be wrong. So for me, Convo is my life journey. And looking back on this journey, if I had stuck with film, my life would go a completely different path. I wouldn't have met the people that I have met. I would not have been engaged with the way I have been engaged. It's shaped the way I think today. So for me, it's my soul. It's just embodied in who I am, and it's a part of my life.
Yeah, it was close. It was close. You got close. You almost went off into film when I got you to come on board here with me. And
I had moments.
I know that you have the soul of the artist. You are genuinely an artist. You're the creative. You're a source of inspiration, and so it's hard to stick at it with the day-to-day grind, because when you're creative, it's tough. But when you were the chief of user experience, that was when I became CEO, that was your role, and we came up with the mobile app and went on from there. And now as chief strategy officer, a lot of people talk about vision and planning and where we're going to be in 5 years from now. And people often say, I've never been at a company where they already have a 5-year plan, but that wasn't easy. Sometimes people today are sitting there going, well, when is all this going to happen? When is this coming? Stuff like this takes time. You've got to build things. We don't rely on external funding sources. We rely on the people who are actually supporting us. And so we grew slowly. And so our timeline is very different. But that's all what's brought us to where we are today.
The key is every morning getting up and still having that same mentality of, all right, let's go do the grind again, right? That's the key part, I feel. It's not, vision isn't easy, it's not free, it's not something that you can just create.
Mhm.
It requires commitment, mental
Right.
commitment, it requires spiritual commitment, yeah.
Also people, it's the people too, because you could have a vision. It'd be easy for just you and I as two people to talk about it and just walk a straight line to it. But without other people understanding the vision or the plan, they'd be all over the
Hmm.
map.
All over.
I used, back when I used to work with my family business, which is real estate, there was one boss. There's one boss, and that boss would instruct me about everything. And I would be like, you know what, I'm part of this. There was nothing wrong with it. That's the way it was designed. But when I got into Convo, I knew that for this vision to succeed, it would succeed when people start taking the lead. And that's what you and I put in place. You helped me set that example. And it was a massive effort, and it continues to be, but we're going to get there.
Agreed. Agreed. Jarrod. So
What's next?
what's it like working together, right? What's the dynamic like between the two of us? How would you describe it? I think you're the best person to describe it.
I think it's pretty much a bromance. you know, sometimes it's work, and sometimes we catch a movie together. We kick back and watch a movie. I mean, I think it's kind of a bromance, little, but mainly.
You know what? I remember there was a point where we almost had a falling out.
Oh yeah.
Right. It was in the middle of so okay. So I look back at this, and this is why we have a great partnership, right? We know that we're gonna hit the lows, and we're still there. You have your moments, I have mine. We have maybe different strategies, we have different opposing views on certain things. I remember one night, you and I were really going at it, and I really felt we were not on the same page. I don't know how you felt, but this is how I felt. And I thought, you know what? Okay. So then went to bed. The next day, you sent me a text and said, hey, come over, let's watch this movie together. You always kind of like push things away and like, it's a new day, let's move on. You're very forgiving. And I think that that's what it's like to work with you every day. I can be real with you. And I know that you're going to challenge me. And I feel like I can challenge you. I mean, that's kind of how I define our dynamic.
Yeah, I think that's a really good analogy, really. I enjoy working with you. We have really deep conversations. We do that a lot. You're the guy who lays out this plan that moves us ahead, and it's my job to figure out how to get us there, and herding everyone together. Plans require financing, it requires logistics, requires a lot of moving parts to get us going. And I really appreciate and enjoy that. And so I'm fortunate to have a partner in you, without question. I mean, you're one in a lifetime. I'm really glad that I did move on to Convo from my real estate background. Making that move was the best thing that I ever did. I mean, and you became what I consider my best friend.
Agreed. You mentioned, and I want to mention a story about real estate. If that's okay.
Which one? I've forgotten.
Let's talk about early days, right? I thought about how I wanted to shoot the rooftop in New York City, right? And in real estate, guy, there's plenty of possibilities. I knew you'd have access. We're talking about in Manhattan, okay? I remember that we had a very small crew. We had a lighting crew, we had a camera crew, we had actors. We all had to climb these stairs, the small
elevator.
Right? No elevator. We had to use the stairs. We took great footage. It was about 3 to 4 hours for the shoot. We wrapped it up. We are now walking down the stairs. And then 2 people came up here, right? Plainclothes, undercover officers who approached us.
Big guys.
With their badges. With their badges, right? Hanging from their chest. And they were talking to us. And at that moment, I was like, oh man, that's it. We're done for. But you were there like, wait a minute. You were getting in there trying to figure out what's going on. And you're like, you were explaining that you're the agent, and all of my crew were just like, oh man, this was a bad decision. We should have never shot from the rooftop. And then finally we went out the doors, and then the NYPD, the vans were all parked with sirens going. All the police officers are
Yeah, they
standing
had
there
cordoned off the whole block. They had patrol cars lined up all around.
everywhere. And you immediately came out and started speaking to them. And all of us were kind of like in the corner, like, And then everybody was laughing. And they were like, oh, shaking our hands and saying it was no big deal. And that's like my earliest memory of working with you. And if you were not there, I have no idea what would have happened. I would have probably been like booked and spent the night or something, you know?
Yeah, those were crazy times. Oh yeah. And what the chief said to me when he came up to me, I mean, he was laughing. He was like, you know what? We were really bored this week. We were hoping for some action. We thought maybe there was a robbery going on the roof because tenants had been complaining because they heard all the footsteps on the roof. Well, we're deaf people, and so we're just stomping around. And so that's what the chief told me. And we gave him our IDs and all that, and all was cool. But the people were so pissed. They wanted to arrest us. They wanted something to do.
I was
But
scared.
what made me mad was that commercial never actually got to happen.
You're right.
It never actually happened. And so I loved it. I love you, but I'm annoyed with you because you're such a perfectionist. It has to be perfect. I'm like, oh yeah, this looks really great. And you're like, nope, nope, nope. And you'll toss it. I mean, you're the expert, Darren, but I get it. It's the artist in you. I get it.
Listen, I've got a system. You have to create 5 different commercials, dump a few of them. You don't need to see them all.
My goal is to have all 5.
Well, unfortunately, it didn't happen.
What else? There's a question. I think it's kind of a funny question. I mean, do you have any balance in your life?
So my life is consumed by work. First of all, I love it. I breathe work. I live for work, but I do have a family. And when I started my family, right, first of all, my partner is amazing. My partner is the best partner for home. When I am stressed, my partner will kind of paint a bigger picture for me so that way I can clear my mind and the next day I can move on and move forward. And you may have seen me probably the last 2 years, I was struggling pretty hardcore because of the COVID pandemic, because we've got family at home and it starts to take a toll on your mental health and your physical health. You suffer from stress. And so a year ago, I find myself thinking, no, you know what? I need some type of balance. I need clarity. If I can take care of myself, then I can take care of those around me. If I can't take care of myself, how am I going to contribute? How am I going to take care of those around me? So that was a big breaking moment for me. I want to say it probably occurred last year. And thanks to you, you took me out and meditated. I have to say it helped. So
Yeah.
For that work-life balance, reserve time for yourself. I cannot stress how important that is. Yeah, but make the commitment. 20 minutes a day, an hour. It goes such a long way. It's kind of like, when you have those spinner tops, you won't feel right. You'll feel off kilter. You'll feel off balance. You want to hit that spin top and keep moving all day long. But what's yours? How do you keep your work-life balance in check?
Well, definitely. Definitely, I try to maintain self-discipline with 3 things. I have 3 goals. One is, when I get up, meditate. I follow the 5-second rule. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Get out of bed.
Yeah,
it's hard.
yeah.
I don't always succeed, but that is a goal. So I get up, I meditate for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then I go down, have a workout, get on the bike, work out. I do that about 4 days a week, and that's how I start my day. And afterwards I shower and do all that. If I don't work out, then mentally, as you said, it's like a toppling top. I've got to work out, I've got to meditate. Sometimes, naturally, you have some off days. It just depends. But
right.
I am divorced, and so I have my kids with me 2 weeks at a time. And so we do alternate every 2 weeks. And when they're not with their mom, they're with me, and I take them to school. And so I've got things to do. And so I have to adjust my routine and get up a little bit early. But I have great support in place here. And when the kids are with me, like I said, I start my day early, and then they go back to mom. I think before COVID, it was perfect. It was a perfect opportunity for me to travel, meet with people, go to the various Convo call centers, and then COVID hit. And boy, I had to really struggle and focus. It was stressful. And it wasn't just for me. I mean, that's what's true for everybody. And so that was what made it very important that I made sure that I had taken measures to have self-care.
I agree. And then if you're also on a computer screen all day long, right? And I
Oh,
remember
yeah.
at the beginning, very little virtual meetings would happen, and it's just like it just reminds myself to stay engaged, and that's a big part of it. I got a question for you. Hobbies. Let's talk hobbies,
Hmm.
right? If I know you, I'm trying to figure out what your hobby is. So why don't you tell
Do you know
me?
what my hobbies are? Snowboarding, yeah,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
bicycling, I should say. I've tried to get you to go bicycling with me. Did that. I don't think you're so much into snowboarding though. What about you?
Movies. They're good. They're a great conversation starter, right? It's like, hey, did you see this movie? No? Yes? Great. Let's talk about it. That's a great conversation piece, right? There's always Netflix.
And you like to ruin the ending for me all the time. Spoilers
Just for
all the
you.
time.
Absolutely for you.
What would be surprising for people to learn about you?
Uh, I would have to say I am a space geek. I am a closet space geek. I followed the James Webb launch, 5 years, just that whole story. I've been following every development. I don't know if anybody knows that, but I am a big NASA SpaceX geek. In another life, I probably was an engineer or even an astronaut. What about you?
I think meditation comes as a surprise to a lot of people. Um, I like to read self-help books. I like to read a variety of books. I got this app. What do you call it? Headway, I think it's called.
Yes,
Yeah,
Headway.
yeah, it's
Very,
really
it's a very
cool
good app.
because it summarizes everything, like 8 pages per. And so I read 10 books a day that way. I have goals like 28-day challenges, things like that. And so um, it's what helps me to continue to motivate myself. I'm always looking for inspiration just to, get through life.
No, I love that, right? Little bite-sized information
Mhm.
readings. You can read it and then move on, go about your day. I love that. Absolutely.
Okay, well, hey, let's talk about next week. Everyone watching, don't forget, next week there's going to be a VRI themed hangout. I want to put that out there before we forget.
Yes. Yes, we do. There's one question though that I'd like to pose that was interesting. What do you think the future is like for deaf businesses? That's a very interesting question.
Ooh.
And I ask myself, if we start today, we start Convo today, there's more resources available, right? There's more tools. Everything's more virtual, right?
Mhm.
You can essentially start your own home business from home, right? You don't need to have engineers. You don't need to have requirements you needed 12 years ago. So you start to see different ideas popping up. Think about TikTok, mind blowing. I mean, we've got deaf actors on TikTok that are marketing themselves all in one app, right? They're
Mhm.
more self-involved. So I
Yeah,
think in the future that's what we see.
in contrast to with what it was in the 90s and the early 2000s, we had to type it all out. Now we try to deal with New York brokers. I mean, it was a real struggle. Um, from then till now, establishing Convo and more deaf businesses uh, starting up, a growing ecosystem. We really want to push that. I know that people have these resources that we can provide leadership, the example that we could promote this. I mean, there is a future for deaf-owned businesses. I think some of that has gone away due to COVID. People have kind of become more isolated, but it's time to get out there, to come back, start sharing resources, because life in this world is tough. There are always going to be ups and downs, you know,
Dependencies, absolutely.
but I so very much believe that in the future, we need to nurture partnerships, especially digitally. This is a digital world now. We've got digital currencies. I mean, that really is a future. We need to figure out how we can integrate that with everyone. I think it's going to be huge.
One example is there is Inca Screen, right? They're a deaf business. They built a website that plugged into our workspace so that internally our employees are able to order Convo apparel through their website with just a click of a button. And they're able to order whatever they want, and it's Convo branded. It's not Convo's merchandise, it's Inca that's doing that, So businesses supporting one another is always a great thing.
Right. And we need to and will see more of that in 2022 and on.
All right. Well, I think with that, I'm just so glad we had the opportunity to sit and chat. And for everybody who's tuning in, I think a good way to close this up is I just want to say thank you again, Jarrod, for being a business partner, for being a great friend. And thank you to everyone at Convo and everything that we've been through together. And I'm looking forward to what 2022 brings. I know there's a lot of uncertainty, but we're going to get up in the morning. We're going to continue to do what we need to do and be consistent, right? We've got another long journey ahead of us. I'm ready to go.
I'm definitely looking forward to the next 12, 100 years, and keep it going. And really, I want to thank our customers and our interpreters for supporting us in this endeavor. We certainly couldn't have made any of this possible without their belief, their support, their catching our vision and plans. I mean, this is hard stuff. It's hard. We stick with it every day. Our customers are great. Our interpreters, excellent. And, with such a wonderful friend of mine in you and business partner, I couldn't ask for anyone better.